With Della Duck back on Earth and reunited with her family, DuckTales has felt more complete than ever. For the last few episodes of Season 2, the family has been going on adventures and closing out the story arcs. It's been fun, but it's been easy to feel like we've been forgetting about something.
Cosmic Celts! Is that the Spear of Selene?
You promised you wouldn't be mad.
Oh, right. The moon people are invading. I knew I forgot about something. DuckTales Season 2 has been one wild ride. It kicked off by making Louie ask what his role was in an adventure. It introduced us to classic, fan-favorite Disney Duck characters from across the world. It gave us insight into the secret history of Flintheart Glomgold. We traveled through time, we froze it for a while, we redefined the origin of Darkwing Duck, we found Della Duck surviving on the moon, brought her back from space, watched her brother get stranded in space, brought a new friend back from the Shadow Realm, and watched a family reunite after a lifetime apart. And somehow, it all sort of worked. Despite being jam-packed with multiple major story arcs and character-defining moments, DuckTales Season 2 felt overall extremely complete and cohesive. So much I almost forgot that there was one last major storyline. The invasion from the moon and the fate of Donald Duck. I have to admit, this is actually kind of a weird episode for me. I definitely wanted to see how General Lunaris' plan to invade the Earth ended and how Donald Duck finally reunited with his sister Della. But I also found myself surprisingly less invested in this story than I expected. I think that might have been because I was so satisfied with how the rest of the season went. Watching Della come home and connect with each of her kids and eventually helping Louie find his place in the family was perfect. Almost to the point that it feels like the season already had its ideal ending. In fact, I loved the rest of the season so much, I kept wondering, was a finale even necessary? And then it dawned on me. The end of DuckTales Season 2 isn't so much a finale as it is a victory lap. And I think that works both to its advantage and to its disadvantage. But before we get into that, let's get into the plot really quick. Just as everything was settling down for Clan McDuck, Della got an urgent message from space. The moon is about to invade Earth. As Della runs to tell her Uncle Scrooge, the family gets ready for the battle of their life. The battle to defend Earth. Except there's just one problem. They've already lost.
This was a very well-planned invasion.
General Lunaris spent years planning this invasion, watching Scrooge, planning every contingency possible. The war was over before it even began, and now it's up to Scrooge to put together a ragtag team of survivors to defend the Earth in one last-ditch effort. It sounds like the setup for an awesome, tense episode, but it was a little hard for me to feel threatened by the Moonlanders. I mean, just look at these guys. They're adorable. We didn't spend a lot of time with the Moonlanders over the course of the season, but the time we did spend with them was incredibly endearing. We saw a planet full of generally nice, kind people who all instantly became friends to Della. Out of the entire moon's population, there were only 2 people who were ever anything but the world's best neighbors, and only 1 who ever qualified as a bad guy. And while General Lunaris is this episode's villain, I have to say I kinda like him too. He's egotistical, clever, and so sure of himself that he's just extremely likable and funny. That's why, despite everything hanging in the balance of this moon invasion, I had a hard time seeing this episode for what it sold itself as. For me, it's exactly what I just said it was before, a Season 2 victory lap. Okay, I know, that's vague, but let me explain what I mean. Season 2 was filled with adventure, globetrotting, and meeting new characters. But for most of those people we met them all separately, in their own perfect little stories. Meeting Darkwing Duck and Jin, or seeing the further adventures of Gizmo Duck, or bringing Lena back from the Shadow Realm were all wonderful adventures. And they all left us wanting more, in a good way. The finale is a chance to finally give us that little extra bit we were craving, and let us enjoy seeing all of these characters together, all at once. It's like the show is topping off the season by doing a crossover with itself. And that crossover, that victory lap, is super fun. There were so many little moments in this finale that just filled me with instant joy. Seeing Launchpad and Darkwing team up. Watching Scrooge use the pogo cane move from the DuckTales video game. Gyro's dark, dry humor. Fenton and his mama's banter. The silent but clear personality of the little bulbs. This episode even has some of my favorite jokes of the entire season. Maybe the entire series.
If the mortals jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? Yes, Father, for I am immortal.
It's a lot of fun, but it also feels like it's over really quickly. I think the action, cameos, jokes, and fun in this episode are all so heavy that the story overall is kind of light. But that doesn't mean there isn't a lot to love here. About halfway through the episode, Della and the kids find Donald stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean. And the reunion between Della and Donald is everything I could have wanted.
Where have you been?
Okay, they get their heartwarming moment too, but I love that the flash in the pan anger and frustration was their first reaction. It's exactly what any version of Donald would do first, throw a fit, and I love that Della is exactly the same way. In fact, the entire island scene is kind of the emotional high point of the episode. Della's actually spent most of the story running away from danger, trying to protect her family. She only just got them back, and she's afraid to lose them. Louis calms her down and helps her resolve to get back to Duckburg and join the fight by teaching her the very first lesson she ever taught the kids.
Unafraid of the unknown.
Because I'll face it all with you. I wrote that song before I got lost.
It comes on a little bit sudden, but I like the idea that she wrote this song for the kids, and despite her absence, it was still their lullaby, a message their Uncle Donald sang to them that helped them define what family meant to them, a lesson Della taught them even though she wasn't there. It's kind of a blink and you miss it moment, but I'm glad it's part of this episode. The island is also where this happens.
Oh boy, I love a reunion.
Whoa!
For whatever reason, Mickey Mouse hasn't made a cameo in DuckTales, but I love that Mickey Mellon has. Not only is it super funny, but this is Chris Diamantopoulos' Mickey voice. That's my favorite Mickey voice. That's it, I'm just geeking out about it, it's perfect. I still feel like there's so much fun in this episode that it's kind of light on story, but the whole thing really does come together in the final act. No matter how hard Scrooge tries, he just can't beat Lunaris. He's found the one Smarty that can outsmart him. Scrooge is just about to give up on making a plan until someone finds a new angle. But not who you'd expect.
You don't need a plan. You need a scheme. A cockamamie one.
Well, we are all out of good ideas.
When you're fighting an opponent that knows your every move, the only option you have left is to do something unpredictable. And there's nobody less predictable than Flintheart Glomgold. Much like everything Flintheart does, this shouldn't work. And yet, just watching the team give into this insanity and go along with Glomgold's most ridiculous, over-the-top scheme yet is just incredibly fun. It's an exercise in pure nonsense, a deus ex machina of insanity.
None of this makes any sense!
The entire Glomgold sequence is kind of why this episode is the cherry on top of DuckTales Season 2. It's the stories, these jokes, its callbacks, the crossovers. It's a pure celebration of everything that made this season fun. From the new characters to the silly gags to Glomgold's over-the-top and insane schemes. It's just a pure celebration. And that would have been enough, but there's more. The episode ends on an incredibly animated, action-packed battle in space. But as great as the effects in that are, even that is a celebration of the characters. The entire sequence is amazing, not just because of how it's put together and animated, yeah, sure, but mostly because it's the McDuck family having fun. So you have fun too. Besides, who doesn't love watching Penumbra come in at the last minute like Han Solo? Awesome. I know this really wasn't one of my typical in-depth reviews, And if I'm completely honest about it, this is probably one of my least favorite episodes of the season from a pure story perspective. But it also had some of my favorite jokes and breakout moments. I'm honestly really split on it. But I do love it for what it does in the end, which is for the first time ever, it brings together the entire DuckTales family all at once. Uncle Scrooge, the kids Della, Donald, Beakley, Launchpad, and friends old and new. After 2 seasons, it's great to see them all together. And I'm extremely excited how a full, complete, all-together family is going to interact and relate to each other in season 3.
Oh man, am I the Uncle Donald?
And it wouldn't be DuckTales if it didn't leave us with a little stinger about what's in store for next time.
The ducks almost cost us the world today, and without the world, who would we larceny against?
And that wraps season 2 of DuckTales for me and this YouTube channel. But we're not done. This episode right here, the video you're watching, is being filmed just hours before the season 3 premiere. So we're definitely not done. This is just the beginning of a DuckTales packed weekend. And I'm really excited to see what's going on in that. By the time you're watching this, you've probably already seen the premiere, but if you want to know my theories and my thoughts about what's going to happen in that season and in those episodes, look up a podcast called Duck Talks. Those guys invited me on recently to do the season 3 promo with them and talk about what's coming up and what we've seen in the previews, and they're just a great, family-friendly DuckTales podcast if you want to check it out. So please go look up Duck Talks. You can find them wherever you get your podcasts. They're super good guys. With that, though, I am going to get these videos ready so you can watch them. And we'll be talking about DuckTales Season 3 and everything else going on with cartoons in this YouTube channel soon. So, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for waiting. And, you know what? Take it easy, Internet.